Well, hi there folks, it's Craig here and I'm back with yet another repair video, and this time it's on my Medeli SP201 keyboard, which you can probably just see there in the camera. SP201, which is the new Medeli model which came out last year over here in New Zealand where I am. Now, I have got another problem on this which I've had with my other Medelis, where I've got a key which is rattling, and that's usually a sure sign that the key is actually broken. In this case it's one of these sharp keys or flat keys here, and it's always these black keys which tend to have this problem because they are raised up a lot higher from the keyboard and they can easily break if they are, well, I don't know whether it's down to mishandling or frequent use or hard use or what it is, but they can actually get damaged reasonably easily if you're not careful. Now, admittedly, I'm quite a hard player on the keyboard. I play a bit of rock and roll and that sort of stuff, so I tend to play the piano pretty hard, and I don't know whether it was because of something I did the other night when I was getting quite frustrated because I kept making mistakes and I was banging the keys quite hard, and it could have been to do with that. But I only just noticed it tonight when I was playing a glissando on the keyboard. So I went like this, down the keys, and as I hit this key here, I heard a rattle and I thought, here we go, something's gone wrong. So you can probably hear it now if I just jiggle the key. Okay, so it shouldn't rattle like that, you see. That one doesn't do it, but this F sharp key here, you see, that's rattling away. So that's a sure sign that something's broken inside there. If you remember, or if you're familiar with my channel, you might have seen some other repair videos that I have on here. And the last one I did was actually a teardown video of a Medeli SP4200. And that's a keyboard which I had for a few years, but I decided to dismantle it and recycle all the parts. And fortunately, I kept all the good keys from that keyboard as spares, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to use one of the keys from that as a replacement to this one. So I'm going to have a go at pulling this apart. I haven't had a look in this keyboard yet, so I'm going to need all the luck I can get. So we'll go through that now actually, and hopefully, I'm hoping that the key will actually be exactly the same, because the difference with Medeli SP201 is that the keys on this are graded hammer action, which of course means that they are heavier in the bass and lighter in the treble. So that's to mimic what a typical acoustic piano would be like. So say on a grand piano, you'll always find the bass keys are heavier than the upper keys in the right here. So this has got graded hammer action. Now, I don't think that'll be an issue with replacing the actual key, because the weights are actually in the key bed itself, not built into the actual keys. So I should actually just be able to replace this bank of keys, hopefully. So I'll give it a go. I'll get this pulled apart now. We'll have a look inside and just see if we can replace that. And, well, if we can, great. If we can't, I'll have to figure out something else. Okay, so let's give that a go now, and I'll pause the video here and we'll be right back. Yeah, so just to clarify, I'm not an expert when it comes to this sort of thing. This is just something I do when I have to, really. I'm just a home repairer. So, always seek, professional advice when you're getting this sort of thing done, unless you happen to know what you're doing yourself. But I'm just going to give this a go anyway and see how I go. And if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, as I say, I'm just a home repairer, and I kind of get enjoyment out of doing this sort of thing anyway. But let's have a go at opening this up. It looks like it's very similar to the SP4200. Just got the same set of screws underneath there. So we're going to need our Phillips screwdriver, and I think this should be about the right size. And basically we're going to just remove all the screws which have arrows next to them. So I'll start with the left hand side here and just work my way along. Right, so that's all the larger screws taken out, and those are all the ones that are along the back here and down the sides. And of course it's always good just to have a container or some sort of lid that you can just put them in, obviously so you don't lose them. Now the other set of screws that I need to remove are the ones at the front here. These have arrows next to them just to indicate that they are the ones that you need to take out. Any screws which don't have an arrow next to them, you just leave those alone, because obviously they're there for holding other things in place. So you don't take those out, just the ones that have arrows. So I'll just get these front ones out, and they'll be a slightly smaller screw, but I'll just put them in the same container as this. They should be a bit easier to get out. Okay, so that's all the screws. So I have two sets here of the smaller ones. There were just 6 along the front there, and just all the rest from the larger holes there. So I'll just pop those to one side, and we'll open this thing up. Now, looks like it's once again very much similar to the other Medelis. It'll just be a case of lifting it up and just levering the lid open. And so the best way to do that will be to turn it over, and I guess I'll go this way with it. Just lift it up. It feels like something's holding it. I'm not sure what that is, but well, it would help if I actually took out all the screws, wouldn't it? So I took those ones out, and I missed these two here. So there you go. There's a trap there for young players. See, an expert wouldn't have made that mistake, would they? So clearly I'm no expert. Feels a lot better. Okay, there we go. Right, so yeah, very similar to the other Medelis. Just your ribbon cables there, which obviously connects to the key bed there. They're actually long enough. That's good. They're actually long enough so that I can open the lid and don't actually have to unplug them. So that's a good thing. So as you can see, we can easily get to these keys now. As you know, with the Medelis, well, certainly on these models, the keys are plastic as opposed to wooden. Obviously, a keyboard with wooden keys is going to cost you quite a lot more money. Wooden keys are always more expensive, and they always make the keyboard heavier. So one advantage of plastic keys is the fact that the keyboard will be lighter to transport, but you will compromise in quality. Now, that's obviously the case in this situation where, being plastic and the way it's constructed, they can easily break if you're not careful. If you're just someone that plays pretty lightly, you know, classical music, or doesn't thump the keys too hard like I do, I always say you're probably never going to have a problem with these, but it's just the type of use that they get from me as the type of piano player that I am. And perhaps one of these days I will invest in a more expensive keyboard, but this is, as I say, doing the job at the moment. Right, well, so the broken key is this one, and yep, it looks like it has come away there. Now, it looks like we've got a problem, because it is a slightly different design. If I grab a spare set of keys from my other Medeli, let's take these out. Yep, okay, so it's a different design. So will that work? So I've got two options. I can either try gluing it, or I could actually try putting these in, but I'd rather not, because it looks like they will fit, but I'd rather actually not have a different sort of set of keys in here. You know, I'd rather actually keep them obviously the same as the original. So I think the first thing to try will be to try gluing that key, given that it's just the plastic, which is just, I don't know if you can see that, but just here, these two joins where it actually where the plastic actually is, where the key is actually joined to the main bracket here, and it's this here which is broken. That's why it's rattling, but it hasn't actually come off. It's because it's still connected here. It's just that it's broken off on this side. So I think what I'll do is I'll actually just try gluing that, and that will hopefully be enough to fix it. And I think a bit of super glue should be all right. And I'll grab some because I think I've got a little bit left. Okay, so I've got some glue here, which is some Sally's Quick Fix super glue, which should be okay for this sort of plastic. And what I really need is a bit of paper or something. I haven't really planned this very well, have I? But I'll just grab a... I mean, as I say, I didn't even plan to do this. This is just something that happened to me literally just half an hour ago. The key broke, and I thought, well, I might as well make a quick video and see if I can fix it. So this is all very unplanned, folks. So you get to sort of see it live in action. So if I just make myself some space here, I'm just going to pop that bit of paper there. So what I'm going to need to do is unscrew that key bed. And which is pretty straightforward. You just got these 4 screws here. Now, of course, what you can do as well is you can swap around the key bed. So I could actually move that bank of keys up to the top here, or vice versa, so that it's a key that I'm less likely to use. And I might even do that actually. I think I might actually put this up here and bring this set down here, so that if I do have another problem with this key, it's less likely to be an issue because it's going to be in a part of the keyboard that I'm not using as much. So I think that would be worth doing as well. But what we'll do initially is we'll just glue it, and then we'll give the glue a bit of time to set, and then we'll put it back in. So I think we're going to have to take the whole thing out perhaps like that. Just lift out the set of keys. Okay, there's our main board underneath. Quite often that gets full of dust. It's always a good idea to keep these keyboards covered actually when they're not being used, because dust does accumulate in here, and when you get dust in the key bed, that can cause a whole host of problems. And that's what happened to my old Medeli. It always got dirty inside, and it eventually got to the point where the keys would just they would play random notes. Often they wouldn't work, and it just got a bit out of hand, and it was just to do with all the dust and grit which accumulated over time. And quite often you do need to get in there with a vacuum cleaner and clean out all the dust and debris, particularly if you're sitting there having your lunch over the keyboard, which I've done before, you know, when you're having a couple of sandwiches and you're playing a bit of music. Okay, so there's the keys I've just taken out, and as you can see with the one, this is from the SP4200 in my left hand here, and in my right hand here is from the Medeli SP201, and they're very similar. In fact, they're pretty much the same. It's just the bracket which is designed slightly differently, but side by side it looks like they would just about fit in there. And just out of curiosity, I think, you know, if we just so yeah, I mean that would probably be okay. Yeah, well there you go. So that's the same set of white. That's the white keys which I've just taken out of here. But all I've done is replace it with black keys from my Medeli SP4200, which, as you can see, even though they're different, they still fit. Problem is these keys have actually been used because they're actually not, you know, they're a bit noisy, because I've already had a lot of use, so I'd rather not put those in here. But it's good to know that I can do that as an option. And in fact, I've got a few spare sets of those anyway. Well, I won't get them all out now, but I've got various ones. I could try different ones, but I'm not going to go to that trouble. It was just interesting exercise to see if they fit in there, and they obviously do. So good to know. All right, so we've all learned something today. So I'll take those ones back out. So that's the SP4200 keys, which came out of my old keyboard. And as you can see, they're not, they're pretty flimsy. I think these ones, it looks like these ones are a better design. Instead of having just one bit of plastic holding it in place, it's actually got two, but it's pretty thin. I thought, you'd think they'd be able to make those a bit thicker or a bit sturdier, just to stop this sort of thing from happening. But I guess it comes down to cost or something, who knows. So the next step will be to try and glue this. So it's this key here, which is our F sharp, and I might be able to just hold it up a bit there, but it's actually broken just in there. And all I'm going to really need is a spot of glue, which I'll try and do without making a mess. I reckon we should be able to just pop a bit of glue in there. Just a little bit. Now I don't know if this is going to hold it, because I have tried doing this with on the Medeli SP4200. I've tried gluing keys and it hasn't worked very well. And I'm not so sure if this will actually stop it from breaking again, to be honest, but it's worth a try, and if that doesn't work, we'll go to plan B. But I'm just going to hold that there to allow the glue to take. In fact, so we just need to make sure it's in the right place. It's got to be pushed down a bit there. We'll say about there. I'm just going to hold that for a moment and just let it kind of set. While I'm waiting for that to dry a little bit, what I'll do is I'll unscrew. I'm just trying to decide whether to take the lower one out or the upper one. I think I'll take the upper one out. Yeah, we'll take the one from up the top there and move it down to the middle here. Sitting here watching glue dry. It's about as exciting as watching paint dry, isn't it? Well, if I carefully put that down just behind me here, I think just on the bench. Okay, so while we're just waiting for that to dry a bit, I'm going to unscrew this other bank of keys. Okay, so there's our same set of keys, but taken from the top there. And you don't really have to take this whole set of keys out, actually. I've just realised you can just lift these out without actually having to lift the whole lot out, but they're pretty easy anyway to get in and out. So I'm going to put those in place in here like that. It's just a bit of a trick, actually. You just got to these clip underneath, so I've just got to do this a bit. There we go. Okay. So as you can see, it's exactly the same, the same set of keys. So there's no difference. The actual weights for the keys are in these hammers. Okay, the hammers here, they got metal weights in them. So the fact that I've changed the keys isn't going to make any difference to how it feels, because there's no difference in the construction of the actual keys themselves. It's actually within the hammers, the actual weights in the hammers. So we haven't affected how the keyboard's going to feel, which is a good thing, of course. So now that I've got that in there, I'm going to screw it back in. So as I've said before, that's one. Let's put it in the right place. That's one good thing with these keyboards, is they are easy to repair. Even though it is a bit frustrating when you get this sort of thing happen, at least you know you can pretty much fix it pretty easily. It would only be an issue, obviously, if it happened when you're just about to do a gig or something. It wouldn't be too great having a couple of keys break at that time, but Well, that's why I always keep a couple of these keyboards, you know, just if something goes wrong with one, I can always put it to one side and bring another one out with me, and you know, rather than having to do running repairs on the fly. Right, so that's in. So I've replaced, I've taken those out, put them down here. That's obviously working fine. And what I might do is, while I've got this thing open, is I might just give these a bit of a clean, actually, while I'm here, just with a soft cloth. So I'll do that. I'll pause the video just while I'm waiting for this glue to dry, and we'll come back to this in a moment, and I'll just close everything up, and we'll see how it's all sounding. Alright, we'll be right back. Okay, well, I'm back again, folks. I've given the keys a bit of a clean with a soft cloth, and they came up pretty well. Just added a bit more glue onto the broken key here. I've put a bit more glue sort of on the top and underneath, just to make it a bit more sturdy. And what I'm doing is I'm going to let it dry in the vertical position like that, because obviously the weight of the key bearing down on the join will actually, hopefully, help the glue to set. And it's probably going to take, you know, 12 hours or so, I'd imagine, before it bonds properly. So I better not try and put this together until that glue has bonded properly to the plastic, and hopefully it will work. So what I'll do is I'll stop the video here, and I'll come back to this tomorrow, and we'll check the keys and see if it's actually, see if the glue's held it in place, and then hopefully we can put it all back together and we'll be up and running again. Alright, so thanks for tuning in for this video so far, and we'll see you all soon. Welcome back, everybody. So here we are on the next day, and I've got the keys ready to go in now because the glue has finally set. Probably be able to see there in the camera, it's gone a bit powdery there as it's dried. I actually had to put some more glue on because I actually managed to knock this thing off the bench, actually, and it fell on the ground, and then it actually broke the other part. So that wasn't very clever of me. So I've actually had to glue the other part on as well. So that's not ideal, but oh well, it seems to have stuck there. So I think it'll be okay. So the idea now is just to put it all back together and give it a test. So as you would have seen earlier on, I actually swapped the bank of keys, the black keys that were in this section here. I actually swapped them, or actually took them from the section up here and put them down here. So these are the black keys that were here, which I'm now going to put up here. And the reason for that, as I mentioned, was just because I figured, well, the broken key is, I'm probably less likely to use it up the top end there, so I'm less likely to break it again. Obviously I hope that doesn't happen anyway, but knowing the way that I play, anything's possible. So let's get this put back in, and we'll give it a test. So the other thing I mentioned before was about cleaning underneath here, and that's quite a good thing to do if you've ever got these keys taken apart. If you've got a bit of dust in there, just get yourself a vacuum cleaner like this with a brush nozzle on it, and I'll even do it now actually if I just... Now that's pretty much all it takes. Is if you've got a bit of dust there, just do that, and that'll get rid of pretty much most of it. And that might take care of any other problems you've got with certain keys if they're not working properly, or if strange things are happening. That'll quite often sort that problem out. Okay, well, let's get this back together. Just put those in like that. Yep, so far so good. Seems to be alright. Just got the 4 silver screws that go in. I actually have to say, I do really like this keyboard. It feels good to play, and it's actually got some good piano sounds on it. I'm actually a fan of there's a particular one called the Japanese piano. And that's the one that I use, and I think that's the one that sounds most like a real piano to me. So that's one I use. If you're ever thinking about getting one of these, have a listen to the Japanese piano and see what you think of that. And Otherwise, there's another one on there. There's like a German piano, and there's a couple of other ones as well. But I just find the Japanese one's the one that sounds the best to my ears. And another interesting thing as well is I had a look at the speakers that I took out of my old Medeli SP4200, and they are exactly the same as the ones in here. So I can sort of see on the back it says the 10 watts 4 ohms, so they're exactly the same speaker. So it's good to know I've got those as a spare if I ever need them as well. I think it's a different, the amp that drives the speakers, I think is rated differently on this keyboard, because I do find that the speakers don't sound as good on this keyboard as they do on the SP4200. To me, they just don't have as much bass response on this one here. The SP4200 just to me sounds a lot better in that regard. But the actual speakers themselves, they do appear to be the same, so that was just interesting. Just have a look at that. So we're all back together there now, and I'll put the lid back on. I've given it all a bit of a clean with that soft cloth, so got rid of most of the muck. Now, something else I'd recommend, folks, is just putting a bit of tape actually over the top of the keys as well. I've done that as an extra added precaution. I've just got some black gaffer tape here, and I've just laid that over the top just to keep them. I mean, I could have just done it on that one that was broken, but I've just put it right across that whole strip of keys there, and I think that's just going to help secure them in place in case that glue doesn't last the distance. So as you can see, I can do that with the keys and it's all fine. And I think just having that tape there, I think it's just going to perhaps just keep them a bit more firmly in place, and that should be enough, should be all we need to do. And we'll see how that goes. Right, so everything's set back up again, and I haven't tried powering it on yet, so we'll do that now and see if everything's working, and we'll see how we go. It's a great thing about these keyboards is they come on pretty quickly, which is good. Okay, so now this is the key that was broken. It was down here. It was this F sharp, wasn't it? So that's working because that's the bank of keys that I took from up there and moved down here, and that's the one that I've glued, and it's not rattling. So that's good. That's a good sign, and we'll just see how that goes. It might start to play up after a period of time or something, I don't know, but I'm hoping that glue will actually hold it. I think it will, and if I'm not using those keys as much, then yeah, I think I should be okay. And otherwise we'll go to plan B and swap it with the ones from the old Medeli SP4200, because I can always do that if worse comes to worse. But no, I think that's fine. So what I'll do is I'll just go through and test all the keys. That's one thing I always like to do, by the way, is before I screw everything back together, a good tip for you is always to make sure that the keys are actually, you're able to press down all the keys. It doesn't matter if you haven't got it plugged in, so you can hear them. Don't worry about that. It's more a case of just making sure that nothing's got caught under the keys, or you haven't put them in properly before you screw it all back together, because sometimes that can happen, and you go to hit one of the keys and it's got stuck because it's not in properly, and then you have to pull it all apart and start again. So that's just something you should just check before putting all the screws back in the back, because otherwise you have to go through all the process of taking it apart again, which, as you know, takes time. But other than that, I think that's all working fine. And yeah, by the way, that's the just the default piano. But if I move to the Japanese piano, Japanese grand, that's the Japanese grand. I just quite like the sound of that. I've actually got it going through a mixing disc with a bit of added EQ, just to sort of boost up some of the frequencies a bit, so it's a little bit different to how it sounds straight out of the piano, but if you do go through a mixing disc, it does allow you to make a few changes on the EQ side of things, and then you can get it sounding exactly how you want. So fingers crossed that it'll stay working, and yeah, might see you in the next repair video. There's bound to be another one, I'm sure. But if you've got any questions, feel free to post them below and I'll do my best to answer those. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for joining me, and take care. We'll see you soon.